The 1st of September, ladies and gentlemen, a happy month start, and thank you very much for joining us on the Viewpoint on DBS television. Today we are going to be touching issues concerning the reading culture, the reading habit of Cameroonians. Are they interested in reading books or novels? Those are some of the questions that we'll be asking in this night's edition of Viewpoint. And talking with us, we are having an author. He is a young writer, a Cameroonian young writer. He is Hesley Fonani, the author of Sense King, The Case File of Albert Archer. This is the book here with me. That is it on our screen. Thank you very much to our producer tonight. And he'll be accompanied by Mange Venatius for us to talk on this particular topic. Good evening to you, Hesley, and thank you for being part of us tonight.
Good evening, Vanessa. Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. Mange Venatius, should I tell you again, wish you again happy month start? Because yesterday I said a happy week start.
It depends on how you begin, Vanessa.
All right. Good evening and welcome.
Good evening, Vanessa. And good evening to our viewers. You know, it's always a pleasure to share with our viewers on Viewpoint. On Viewpoint.
It is a new month. Hope that you are more positive to start this month. Let us take the first part of the show. That is the question, yes or no question and answer. Once more, you are welcome back. Our first question: are there justifications for the poor reading culture in Cameroon? Hesley, I'll begin with you.
All right. So the assumption, first of all, that there's a poor reading culture in Cameroon is not a correct one.
Okay.
I think the literary scene in Cameroon is growing every day. So we've come a long way from where we used to be, and in a few years' time, we're going to be, I want to say, head and shoulders with every other country in the world.
Probably that's your viewpoint, so you think that it's a no question answer, rather. Mange Venatius.
Yes, I was of the opinion that it is yes, there is a poor reading culture in Cameroon, except an author, person in that field, tells us that there are. So I take a yes. A yes for an answer.
A yes for an answer. And following that question, can anything be done to redress the situation? Hesley, since you said no, so can anything be done to ameliorate the reading culture of Cameroonians?
Yeah, there's still a lot more work to be done, and a lot more of us are still doing a lot of things to ameliorate the reading culture in Cameroon.
Venatius.
Yes, I think we still have much, because if there is no reading culture, then we need to improve.
Then we need to improve. Let us take the second part, that is the debate. Are there justifications for the poor reading culture in Cameroon? Hesley, the author of Sense King, tells us tonight that he thinks that is the contrary. Cameroonians have developed the attitude or the habit of reading. So, Hesley, according to your observations, could you give us more light into your own assumption? Because this is my own assumption. All
right. So, the reading culture in Cameroon it's a strange one. Not because Cameroonians don't read, as people say. I think worldwide, excuse me, worldwide people don't read. It's not a Cameroonian thing. The average Cameroonian is just starved of content. So when Cameroonians write, when Cameroonians produce books, when Cameroonians produce, when we write short stories, long stories, even social media, it counts. Cameroonians read. There are Cameroonians who read newspapers exclusively, but it's still reading. There are Cameroonians who read magazines, it's still reading. So what we have to do, or what we are doing, is more and more Cameroonians are finding themselves writing in different spheres, you know, writing social media, writing on Medium, writing tweets, Facebook, and more Cameroonians are consuming. Now, back to your question of is there a poor reading culture in Cameroon? The reason why I say it's not poor is because it's growing. If there's a noticeable improvement in the reading culture in Cameroon, then it's not fair for us to say it's poor.
Okay.
The only problem is if Harim is stagnating, then we could say, okay, this is poor. But I think because it's growing, we have to commend our efforts and say, hey, Cameroonians, we do read. Let's give ourselves some pat on the back, especially the younger generation, because they, more than us and the people who came before us, are more exposed to books, they're more exposed to social media, so they read more than we did at their age.
All right, but Hesdy Fonane, I'm still not convinced, because when you look at the social media, the articles that are written there, maybe there might be news articles, there might be bloggers writing a particular content, but it will never have the content that a book carries. And if you go to our libraries now, the amount of people you used to see in our libraries, you no longer see them. It's just like a Cameroonian, if you want to like get Cameroonians astray, just put something very important in the book, and they will never have it because they are so lazy to get in the content of the book to find out what is in it. But yet you still find out that they are having this reading culture. How many people will buy a book online to read that book, as compared to what the hard copies that we do have available?
Let me ask you a question before I continue. Do you think also people read?
Probably that goes to our televiewers.
All right, because the reason why I say Cameroonians read is because I belong to several writing communities, and in these communities we have writers from everywhere in the world. It's quite international, and there's a general complaint that people don't read. But the people who, I have to confess, I don't have the numbers, but there's a recognition that more people read now than previously. So more people are interested in reading, and there are simply more people on earth than maybe 20, 30, 40 years ago. Population is growing, so there are more readers. In Cameroon, what happens is we're a poor country, right, or a developing country. So people don't dedicate as much time or money to buying books. However, we have this exchange culture. So if one person buys a book, there's a very good chance that 10 people read it. You buy, you lend, you buy, you lend. That's what happens. And then there are people who just buy novels for these second-hand novels they sell along the road. Yeah, 500 francs, 1,000 francs. Not me. I don't do that. But the people who do that, they buy the books and their friends read. So when it comes to do people buy books, no, maybe we don't buy like our counterparts in the Western world, but people do buy books, and people read and they exchange.
All right, thank you very much for your viewpoint, but you stay with us. We remain in the same topic, but getting the point of view of Mange Venatius. Venatius, you rather think that there is a justification why the poor reading culture in Cameroon is not that good enough? You know, I want to believe something. Back in those days, you see, most people do read because they are forced to. Maybe they are literature students in school, they are forced to read a particular novel or the other. But out of that, do they really get interest in knowing writers, in knowing authors, and reading their book profoundly?
Vanessa, that's what I was just saying, that before getting into this profession, I read a novel because I had to answer questions in class. I don't ever think I took a book and I was reading. When we talk of the reading culture in Cameroon, and we get it from an author who says it is progressive, I think it is a pat on our back, because that's something that maybe I think our viewers too should be learning, to know that Cameroonians are adopting that culture to read. Because when you look at in the African sub-region, in the West, in the Central African sub-region, Cameroon is one of those countries, or that country that the literacy level is a bit higher than the neighboring countries. The rate of those who are educated in Cameroon is higher than the other 5-member country that form the CEMAC region. But then, when you look at how many people read in Cameroon, when we talk of reading is not necessarily reading a novel. We in the media, we cry that newspapers, we publish 2,000 copies. People are not even able to buy. I don't want to look at it as a question of being poor, because in Cameroon, newspapers just cost 400 francs. In Ivory Coast, it is 800. It is 1-2 to buy a newspaper. Practically not even up to the volume that we have here. But the question I ask is, how many people have that culture to get up in the morning and at least find out what the papers are saying, to read, to see that this is the information that we have? How many people buy a novel to remember that you go back and sit and read Sense Pass King. I don't know, is it in the school curriculum? Is it in the...
Not yet.
But you are working to getting it into the school curriculum.
Yes.
And when it finally gets into the school curriculum, you will discover that the number of those who are reading are students because they are answering. Are they reading because they love reading? Are they reading because they want to know? That is the question of, when we talk of reading culture. Are we in Cameroon, do we have that culture just to be inquisitive, to find out? Because ask me the latest books now. I think I heard about Sense Pass King some time ago, last year, and since then this is today is the first time.
2 years back.
Correct. Today is the first time I'm seeing a copy.
Okay, so
what I was saying is, I think that we need to adopt that culture to think that once I go back home, at my leisure time, let me have a novel. I remember when I was in secondary school, I dropped from literature right in Form 3. Because the literature textbook we were supposed to have was not available at the time. What happened with the money happened with the money for the book. And finally, I did not continue reading literature. I dropped and I took up the sciences. But then, after that, I happened not to have done the sciences in the second cycle. But then, literature just ended with me in Form 3, Form 4 and Form 5. I was not interested in it. Till today, I think if I'm reading today is because I am obliged to read if I'm to keep my mind, or to keep track with information. But then to say that Cameroonians get up and read. Vanessa, you were quoting one popular say that is so familiar with Cameroonians. If you want to hide something, put it in writing. Put it in writing and just throw it on the floor, and you see how many people will be able to even read. How many people take time to pass in front of notice boards to read what is pasted there, to find out what is happening? How many people take time to find? There is something they called the National Bulletin. I don't know whether how many people do read it. When national information presidential decree. I don't know whether Cameroonians know it. It is in English and in French. It's bilingual. So when we talk of reading culture, if an author is telling us that it is improving, then I think it is something that we need to be proud of, because I think that Cameroonians should, and we in the media, we should feel the impact. Because we should get a shortage of newspapers. Where you take some foreign countries, you see somebody is rushing to work in the morning, struggling with a newspaper or struggling to stand by at a newspaper kiosk to get a copy, because he needs to be informed what is happening. But they will lie here. People produce weekly, people produce bi-weekly, bi-monthly even, and they don't even buy them. So I think that there's something we need to commend Cameroonians for, if there is this improvement of reading, if we are already developing that culture. Yes, to read.
All right, can I? Yes, you want to add something?
Yes, rebuttal. So you spoke about newspapers, for example, right? The thing is, print media suffers everywhere in the world. Social media has killed newspapers.
Yeah, you're right.
It's going to be hard for me to get up and go and buy a newspaper when I can pick up my phone, scroll through Twitter, and see not only what's happening in Cameroon, but what's happening anywhere in the world. It is very easy to use my phone to do that. I speak as a millennial. Facebook and Twitter are our newspapers. I'm a Twitter addict. So when I wake up in the morning, that's where I go to.
But will you get all the content of a newspaper? Let's take, for example,
if you take e-kiosk in Cameroon, yes, they produce only the headlines, the front page.
Not really. So
how will you get the content of those headlines which are on the front page?
Okay, so the first thing about the news is you cannot know everything that's on the news, right? Which means that those of us who are interested, we have our favorite reporters. There's Mimi Mefo and Gina Sondo. Those are two people whom I follow on social media.
Without advertisement, probably.
Sorry?
I said without advertisement, probably.
Okay, sorry. Yes, so I know that if I go there, I'll know what's happening in Cameroon. And the advantage they have over print media is not really is it accessible. They can give me information up to date as soon as it happens.
But Hesley would once have that debate here, and not all the time. It's not always accurate. You need to verify those informations, the posts on the social media, because most often when you get the real news of those things, you discover that no, there is more insight into those stories, not just the mere captivating headlines that the most are written over the social media.
All right. Again, it goes because they have blogs, right? So, like I said, okay, not to mention the people whom I follow, but I think they're reliable. They do their proper research before posting our information. Even if it's an hour or two later, most of the times they keep you updated. They tell you, and that's the beauty of Twitter. they can tell you in 280 characters this has happened.
Okay.
5 minutes later, they will date you.
Mange Venashus, Hesley, please, I'll cut you short. He deals more with these papers, both in Cameroon, Africa, and the world in general. Is that actually what Hesley is telling us? That you can get all the content of the newspaper online.
That is it. When you go to, I was quoting a site, e-kiosk. You have most newspapers, local newspapers, and in this, there is no newspaper who want to produce a hard copy, and then produce a soft copy and makes it available for free of charge. There are two options. There is one where you can buy directly. There is another option where you can subscribe, and they send the full content of the newspaper to you. What they simply do is they take the headline, the major stories, and advertise their papers, so that once you are interested, you go in for details. But then we were talking about if we have to remain on the level of social media. You know, social media is everybody is a journalist.
Exactly.
Everybody produces. If I can sit here and I would decide to tell you that the president of Cameroon has died, and I publish it on Facebook, and somebody will read it somewhere,
and it will have effects,
and it will go.
Yes.
That is why you hear of fake news so much being, being on the, probably
on the social media
more than on the normal conventional media, because nobody censors what is being published. Nobody censors it. Anybody sits and just publish whatever he feels like publishing. That's why you have the same story and you can have it in 3-4 versions talking about the same story. Which one do we take? I think that when we talk of the reading culture, if we have to equate the reading culture and talk of those who go to social media, most of us read social media. I think I doubt to find out whether they really read it to understand. I think they read it to argue, because when you look at most of the discussion on social media, you see anybody argues from his own angle, anybody argues from his own angle. But then the point is, how many people get up in the morning and go down to find out, for at least for Cameroon, we have a national newspaper that we believe that information on it is the authentic. We believe it is a channel through which government information is passed through. How many of us get up in the morning, look for Cameroon Tribune and flip through to find out what is happening? We would want to go to maybe blogs. We may want to go to maybe sensational newspapers, sensational newspapers actually, because you look at the way stories are treated, you see that they are treated in a kind of,
or editorials.
Correct.
Probably.
You know, their angle.
The front page,
each paper has an angle it treats issues, and when they go there, when they take it, they treat it according to their angle. And maybe those who want to talk about sports will look for sports newspapers. Those who want to go for politics will look for political. Those who want to talk about culture will look for culture. Those who want to go about education. But how many of us really get up in the morning to find out what is in the news today? What is in the news? I think that we want to go in for, like somebody said, we want to go in for gossips in social media than information. We are looking for those burning issues. What has Kamto said now? What is Paul Biya saying now? Or what is being said about Paul Biya Kamto issue? All this, that is what draws our attention. But as to what happened to or in this ministry, I'm surprised that you get Cameroonians, they don't even know that there's a concours going on, whereas it is published. Because that doesn't make anything to them. And who has the time to go looking figures? No, we are looking at what they have said. Has Paul Biya died? Has Paul Biya spoken again? Who did he receive? We don't want to go into what did he say. It's just like you pass around the kiosk, you get people discussing newspapers they have not even opened. They have just read the headline, and then somebody is vomiting out whatever he thinks. Whereas the real information, forgetting that headlines are just captivating words to draw your attention into reading. So I think that we need to go deeper. It's true, if there is an improvement in the reading culture in Cameroon, it is laudable. But then let us go a step further, because given our intellectual capacity in Cameroon, we should have been that country where everybody is hunger for information. Information, not vibes. Information, not gossips. Information, not social media. Well, I've called it fake news.
All right. Thank you very much, Mange Venashus. We are working within a time frame, and so we will take our second question. Can anything be done to redress the situation? Hesley, since you think that the region culture in Cameroon is improving, so what can be done to ameliorate the condition?
Okay, so it's improving, and so far what's happening is, like I said, more and more people are creating content. But then there are more cultural festivals, there are more writing workshops, there are more, like when, for example, in my case, I had book launch, I've done book reads. You know, those are things that people do to captivate the audience. And I'm not a marketer, but what I've learned is, if you want people to read more, which is what I think we all want, you need to don't try to convince them on the benefits of reading. Market it as a luxury item. Appeal to the vanity of what it means to be a reader. So, for example, if you have a book launch tomorrow, don't tell people, oh, if you come to my book launch, my book will do this. No, make it an exclusive event. It's only for certain people of a certain class, people who think one kind of way, people who consider themselves high members of the society, and all of a sudden everybody wants to join. It's like an iPhone. There are people who they buy iPhones not because of what they believe.
How about advertising in my show?
Yes, so there are people who buy certain items not because of the perceived benefits, but because they want to belong. You know, in quotes. I want to be one of the people who uses this. I want to be part of the people who use this or who use that. And I think that's what we need to do with books. Secondly, we need to pay specific attention to the next generation, because reading habits are habits you pick up when you're young. If you want kids to read, you need to start early. You know, and part of doing this is not through because I know how we used to treat English or literature back in the day. Most of the times you don't even finish your syllabus. Right.
You just choose certain chapters, or you just feel that let me select what I think.
I think we should focus on the storytelling aspect of it. Just let kids enjoy. Not reading because they have an exam, but what do you like about this book? You know, let kids learn to enjoy books for enjoyment's sake, not because they have to write an exam or because they have to answer to somebody, and then you find them cramming things and looking for past questions. I know people. Somebody I know, he literature student back in the day, he wrote Jane Eyre, like in the GCE, without ever reading the book. All he used was past questions, and then he had a vague idea when I wrote, and he passed. We cannot have that. In my opinion, it's preferable you read the book, you enjoy it, and you don't ever write an exam, than to write an exam on a book you never read. So yeah, those are two things I think
should be done to ameliorate the reading culture. Manga Shoes, your own contribution?
Yes, Vanessa, you know, when I heard about the author for Narnia, was saying that these are examples that Cameroonians should imitate, because we used to have the impression that those who wrote books were already retired out of service, and they have to consecrate their time writing, because when they talk of authors, we are thinking of Shakespeare, we are thinking of Woye Soyinka, we are thinking of Chinua Achebe, we are thinking of, you know, and we used to feel that it was for the old. But when the young people are getting into it, I think that it's high time the government, I don't know what the government does with you people, whether the government encourages you into getting into it, into settling into book writing as a profession, or do you do it as a hobby? I think if we have to let those who are writing, they take it as a passion and write, I think that it would, because I'm forced to read Sense Pasking. Yes, because I see the author. Yes, it is not reading Shakespeare. I don't know when he lived. His era, when he was writing, all the setting is quite different from what we have now. We are just fascinated with the way he wrote his English, and his English is even outdated. I call it old English. And now we are writing somebody who is living in our era. Certainly in his book, he will be quoting Facebook, quoting Twitter, and the other. We feel belonging. We feel part of it. So I think that we should make it part of us. The government should encourage them first. Then, like he was saying, we should not read it only within the school setting. Vanessa, I remember around the year 2000, the British High Commissioner to Cameroon at the time, I can't get the name, he came to Bamenda and was encouraging this reading culture, and that is why you discovered that the British Commissioner or Britain was, establishing what used to be at the time British libraries along towns. I don't know whether it exists now, because it used to be an opening for people to walk into the library, pick a book, you sit quietly and read, and then after some time you go back. It was like, set for a certain class of...
We used to have it back then.
Yes, it was like for a certain class of people whom their parents would drive them, they come and park somewhere, they go and read, and after that they come and enter their car and they go. For those of us who were working, I remember this commissioner came when I was in school.
During school times, we had a big library. Yes, David Oni's library, the biggest library even, I think in Cameroon, if I should put it that way.
Yes.
Yes. So there, during your break time, you don't have anything doing. You go to the library, you could see any book enticing. You collect it and you read.
So, yes, Vanessa, we'll talk of a biggest library. I think there is no library in Cameroon Cameroon, I cannot mix words, that we could equate it to the major seminary library in Bambui, in Bamenda. Go there, you have more than, I don't know, the library is so vast. Okay. If you don't have a guide, you cannot go there. You can't even pick one book. Because you need a guide to take you through. But the word here is, how many of us go there to read, to know? We went into the library because we had an assignment that we had to do, and you have a deadline to submit. You are going for a particular book, and once you take it, you look for what you are not just reading the book. You are looking for your assignment, and once you solve your assignment, you leave the library. So what I'm saying here is, we need to encourage people to know that we have to read. Reading to understand. Reading to enlarge. Because they used to tell us in school that once you read, you broaden your
horizon.
Yes, you broaden and then you nurture your reasoning capacity. But then it was just like, we do it for exam purposes, and after that, once you forget about it. How many university students can still think of the novels they read in first cycle or in second cycle? How many of them can still think of it? How many of them still take it and have the time to sit and read? Because you are just planning to read. If not, you will not validate your course. So I think that we need to encourage Cameroonians to know that, let us read, develop the culture of reading, because they say once you read, you learn, and there is no knowledge that is useless. So I think that we need to tell Cameroonians, go to the library, big books. Vanessa, I remember at times we used to rent Nigerian movies when it was still in this big cassette, HVR or something like that. We used to beg it, rent it around to watch it. How many of us do rent novels today to read? How many of us do beg novels? Please, when you finish Sense Passing, please give me, let me read. And
people do.
All right, thank you.
That's why we say that class of people that still do it. Let us extend it so that it should become part of our culture. Let us learn to know that at my free time, let me just take a novel and sit to read. Not because I'm preparing for any exam, but because when I saw this Sense Passing now, I was saying that no, I have to read it to see what it is talking.
No, I've read it. It's very, very interesting.
Yes, so I think we need to develop that reading culture in Cameroon, Vanessa.
All right, thank you very much, Mange Venashus. We use this platform to extend our condolences to the Shadrach Ambanasom's family, who is of late last week, and of course he is the popular author of Son of the Native Soil that most people must have read in the secondary school. Hesley Fonani, I would like you to talk to us a little bit about Sense Passing, the case file of Albert Archer, in 2 minutes.
Alright, so Sense Passing, the case files of Albert Archer, it's a collection of short detective stories set in Cameroon. Each story chronicles a mystery as presented to the detectives. There are 2 of them, and then it's up to them to try to figure out what happened, who did what, where, and when. So the reader follows the detectives as they move from the beginning stepwise until they arrive at the conclusion. It's actually the first book in a series. The next one will be out sometime end of October. Okay. Yes.
So this one is how much does it cost?
It's 5,000 francs. We're currently out of stock, but in a few weeks we should have more copies available.
All right. So for those that would like to get a copy, how do they get to you?
I'm working on a virtual website so that you can get on there. But for now, you can just hit me up on social media.
All right, Hesley Fonani.
Yes, Hesley Fonani on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
All right, thank you very much for honoring our invitation. It has been a pleasure having an insight on knowing fully well that Cameroonians are developing the culture of reading already.
Yes, Vanessa, I just wanted to ask for Nani if Sense Passing, is it in Pidgin? Pidgin English?
No, it's in
English. Because just the title is like,
no, it's purely
you get Sense Passing. Anyway,
it's purely English. It's purely English.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Hesley, for coming. Thank you very much, Mange Venashus, for your contribution. Ladies and gentlemen, let us develop the culture or the habit of reading. Do not forget that information is power and power is knowledge. So just make it as a habit, or decide that one day will not meet you by without you reading something of that day. Do have a blessed evening in the company of programs on DBS television. Coming up 8 o'clock, we'll be having the primetime news edition with Eve Mukori. Goodbye.